Hello. Hi. Yeah, I promise I won't say slay. So today I want to talk about the idea of salt and light, and specifically focusing on salt for the first half. Our verse for today is Matthew 5:13, which says, "You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot." But before we get there, I just want to look at the verses that precede it, the verses that go before. See, before we see Jesus going up a mountain teaching the Beatitudes. I think I'm saying it right. And they come from two Latin words meaning beati sunte. That means blessed are. And that's why the 9 verses before say, blessed are this, blessed are that, blessed are this, blessed are that. Some of them are, blessed are the meek. See, meekness is not weakness, but sometimes it's taken to mean you're weak. Meekness is power under control. So blessed are the meek. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Then it says, blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness. Righteousness meaning conducting one's life in an upright manner and with moral standards to reflect that we have relationship with the Lord. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. So we have blessed are, blessed are, blessed are, blessed are. And one thing that struck me about all these teachings from Jesus is that they're all countercultural. They were then and they are now. The Greek word for blessed can also be translated as happy or to be envied. So what Jesus is really saying is, to be envied are those who are mourning. Those who are mourning are to be envied, which is something that that's not what we would really think, right? But so why? I was like, so why are they to be envied? And the answer I got was because they are in the perfect position to be comforted by the great comforter. So you mean those who try to keep the peace are happy? Proverbs 20 verse 3 says, it is to one's honor to avoid strife. So you mean those ones that don't always look for a reason to quarrel, those ones that are happy to be disrespected but just have so much confidence in who they are that they don't feel the need to disrespect back, they're the ones that will be called children of God? See, what I find interesting about all these verses is they don't fit with the culture of today. Another thing I find interesting is just the Bible in general. See, today, when you read the Bible, it's divided into categories and verses and chapters, but when they would have originally written it, it wouldn't have been divided like that. So sometimes when I'm reading it, if I'm struggling to understand, I read through the title and I just forget that the titles are there because it shows just kind of the way Jesus would have said it. So what we find in our text today is that Jesus said things that were very countercultural, and then we land on our verse that talks about us being salt and light. So what does that tell me? That as the salt of the earth, we're meant to be countercultural. It tells me that we're meant to affect the flavors of the surroundings we find ourselves in. So we're meant to be countercultural and we're meant to affect the flavor. Great. But if we lose our saltiness, how are we going to do that? If we lose the things that set us apart, how are we going to do that? See, Revelation 3:14 talks about the church of Laodicea. We see Christ rebuking them for being lukewarm. And today there's a lot going around that's being spoken about how Christians are becoming lukewarm. And people suggest that it means that you're a half in, half out Christian. You do some things and then you don't do other things. And fair enough, that's convicting on some level. However, that's not what Jesus really meant. See, to understand what Jesus was really talking about, you need to know a little bit about Laodicea. So let me tell you. Laodicea was a city that had a water issue. History tells us that their water flowed for miles through an underground aqueduct, and so by the time it reached them, it wasn't really, really hot and nice, and it wasn't cool either. It was dirty and tepid and lukewarm. So this metaphor would have been something that they were very, very familiar to. See, when visitors that weren't accustomed to the water of Laodicea visited and drank it, they were known for just spitting it out. And that's crazy to me because something that someone else isn't used to, it's so gross that it would make someone just spit it out straight away and not want it anywhere near them, was something that the people of Laodicea were living with as if there was no issue. Jesus was telling them that you're no longer spiritually on fire. He was saying that they're not cold and blatantly rejecting Jesus, but they're also not at the place that he wanted them to be. And so the idea that they were lukewarm is not also something that they were outwardly professing. They weren't going around talking about it like we do today. They weren't aware of it. They weren't cognizant of it. They didn't know. And so that's why Jesus wrote them that letter. See, Christ wasn't saying all of this to beat them down and to highlight their wrongness and just leave them in it. Verse 19 tells us that to those he loves, he rebukes. So he corrects and he disciplines. So be earnest and repent. The word tells us that Jesus said, I stand at the door and knock. John MacArthur says, Christ was seeking to enter this church that bore his name, but lacked a single true believer. So Christ didn't just write this letter and leave them. He was willing to come in and help them and give them the real light of a true spiritual fire. So, our verse, you are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. If salt is out of purpose, it's useless. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. If a lamp is hidden and the light it contains is covered up, it's useless. See, we're called children of the light. We have Christ inside of us, who is the light of the world. So let's not hide it. Let's go out and show people the kind of love that we've experienced for ourselves. See, what happens in this building is not just for this building, it's for every single place you go. This year, our word of the year for World Changers was chosen at the end, as you saw on the video. World Changers defined by my designer, and you're chosen. See, at Youth, we understand that what God has placed in us and where he has placed us is specific and with purpose, to reach the people that only we can reach, to reach the people in your life that only you can reach. Verse 16, in the same way, let your light shine before others that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. You are salt and you are light. There's going to be a flavor to the world no matter what we do, but it's up to you what that flavor is going to be.
If you enjoyed this video today, why don't you click subscribe and click on that notification bell to get a notification the next time we upload a video. And if you're new or you've been coming to the C3 Church for a little while now, why don't you find out what your next step might be in the journey of faith? Click on the next step link in the description below to find out what your next step in your journey might be.